Let me just explain a bit more about what was actually taking place in Acts chapter 16, verses 16 through 25. Paul and Silas were not only seeing lives changed, but they were changing the very culture and economics of the city. The gospel, when embraced in the heart, creates holistic changes in our lives and in the spaces we live on every level. For this, they are stripped naked, beaten with rods, and flogged. Remember who else was flogged? You guessed it, Jesus. Roman flogging was pretty brutal. The instrument of punishment is a whip with several strips of leather into which were embedded near the ends with pieces of bone and lead. Each hit on the bare back of the recipient would literally tear chunks of flesh from the body. From there, Paul and Silas are thrown into prison. At this point, most of us would be reconsidering the level of our commitment to God. Not Paul and Silas. At midnight, they start praying and singing songs to God. What is rolling around in the minds of these two guys that caused this kind of activity? Later, Paul will write a letter to the Romans and essentially says to them, in view of all that God has done for us, it is only reasonable that we would give our lives as living sacrifices to Him. Paul and Silas considered all they had just experienced against all that God had already done for them and the promises yet to do for them, and they conclude God is still way ahead. And they burst out singing. Made sense to them. It likely caused the inmates listening to scratch their heads and ponder. But I think there is something else going on here. The practice of worship, rehearsing who God is and what He has done for them, actually aids in moving these beliefs from the head to the heart and gives them courage to sing out. Well, God is about to do something more for them that will be added to their next worship service. Acts chapter 16, verse 26 says, "Suddenly there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. At once all the prison doors flew open and everyone's chains came loose." Imagine being an inmate watching all this take place. Guys who have been in jail for months, even years, suddenly having their chains falling loose. What a sight. And what a reminder that heartfelt worship of God with our lips and our lives has a powerful impact on those around us. Can you imagine the story the jailer told his friends and relatives? Let's continue as we read Acts 16, 27 through 34. The jailer woke up, and when he saw the prison doors open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself because he thought the prisoners had escaped. But Paul shouted, "Don't harm yourself. We are all here." The jailer called for lights, rushed in, and fell trembling before Paul and Silas. He then brought them out and asked, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" They replied, "Believe in the Lord Jesus and you will be saved, you and your household." Then they spoke the word of the Lord to him and to all the others in his house. At that hour of the night, the jailer took them and washed their wounds. Then immediately he and all his household were baptized. The jailer brought them into his house and set a meal before them. He was filled with joy because he had come to believe in God, he and his whole household.